Hello, welcome back to the briefing room. I'm your host, Tony Dorsey, here with Jack Basso, AASHTO's Director of Program Finance and Management, here to talk about a hot topic, and that's the jobs bill. It's up in the Senate right now. Where does it stand?
The Senate has been working since December on producing a jobs bill. That still is in motion. Bills have not been actually formally introduced, but we believe that there will be two segments of bills, perhaps combined, perhaps two separate bills, one dealing with tax issues and the Highway Trust Fund preserving its solvency, the second dealing with unemployment compensation, infrastructure, investment for jobs, and other things that relate not only to the transportation world, but to the overall economic straits that we're in.
Jack, what's the advantage of breaking this up?
Actually, I think when you think about jurisdiction in the U.S. Senate, where things today require 60 votes to do anything, the separation really puts them into proper jurisdictional categories. For example, the Senate Finance Committee, which would have jurisdiction over all the tax-related subsidies and benefits, and the Highway Trust Fund's revenue, will be able to handle a bill more easily without the things that fall into the purview, for example, of the Environment and Public Works Committee and the Banking Committee that are program-related issues. So that separation, I think, makes it easier for the Senate to deal with garnering its majorities it needs to pass these pieces of legislation.
Jack, things are really fluid up in the Senate, so we're not going to hold you to any figures, but tell us, where do the numbers stand right now?
Well, you're into an interesting area, Tony, because the numbers have been moving around that we've been hearing pretty rapidly. Clearly, the House set a benchmark. They're at $27.5 billion for the highway program and about $8 billion for the transit programs, $1 billion for aviation. That's, to me, probably the top line. The Senate numbers have moved anywhere in the range of the lower to mid-20s for highways and $6 to $8 billion for transit. But again, this is an hour-by-hour developing story, so I probably don't want to be held to any numbers because it's hard to tell, but that's the general vicinity I think we're in. So.
Jack, we've been saying this for weeks. The clock is ticking. How soon does the Senate have to act?
Well, I think that the imposed deadline is February 28th. The current extension expires at that point, leaving the Congress in the position to have to do something if it wants to keep this program moving, which I think they do. On the long-term extension, which is what we understand the Senate is considering and the House included in its bill, it would be ideal if this is done before the end of February, so that other shorter-term measures don't have to be introduced. Jury's still out on that. We have to wait and see, what can be done. I mean, it's a very difficult set of issues for the Senate to deal with, but I have substantial confidence they will reach some accord between now and the 28th and allow them to go to conference with the House and work this out.
Turning now to the President's budget that he just proposed this week, tell us, are you happy with it? Is it good news, bad news?
I think it's both a good and bad thing. The good news is what it does is sustain and actually give a little increase to the surface transportation program, somewhere around 1%, which is, in a freeze budget, certainly says there's a priority given to these things. The bad news side of it is what we most need to do, though, is enact a long-term reauthorization bill that would allow the numbers to grow substantially, and that will entail having to find new revenue to do it. But it's very clear that our investments need to grow beyond this, but good start in the right direction anyway. So.
Tell us a little bit about this fund. What do you know about it? And is it clear yet what we're going to get out of it?
Well, let's connect to where this originated. If you go back to the president's campaign, he made several calls for creation of a national infrastructure bank. I think in introducing this top-line proposal in the budget for the second year, last year he proposed funding but really didn't have any definition for what it was. This time around there's funding again and a little more description of what it would be, but as I've said in many forums, God or the devil, depending on how you see it, is in the details. And the details need to be forthcoming on the proposal so that we know exactly how it would work and what it can do, because it's not actually completely a bank. It's a blend of a grant program and a credit enhancement program. The case of grant program, it calls for a whole different structure in the department to administer these grants of national and regional significance. In the case of credit, to be able to utilize credit, you have to have a revenue stream if you're the recipient to pay the credit back. So more details would help us to better formulate how we see this going.
That's our briefing room for this week. Thanks for watching. Join us again right here on Transportation TV.